everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don. And if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason. That's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you each and every week by ComicBookClique.com. And as always, I am never alone. Sir, if you could please introduce yourself.
It's me again, guys. Alex Garcia, aka the Comic OG, the Cog, is here with the Don to talk about. How else to say, but a hell of a story, huh?
Yes, yes. The prodigal cog has returned. We are in we're in the season of giving, and we thought what better gift to give than the gift of the Major Issues Podcast. But more than that, sometimes we like to cover books that might be a little bit on the edge of what people perceive a comic book can be. A comic can talk about. A comic can discuss. And this was a book that we had on the schedule that you had recommended months ago, knowing that we were going to have this like sort of Christmas season. It's the only quasi Christmas book we'll be covering for this season, but it's a little book called Second Coming by Mark Russell, and it is published under Ahoy Comics, a publisher I was not very familiar with. Before we get into all that nitty gritty, how did this book come across your desk? How did you feel? How were
Back
you made aware
when
of it?
this initial series was announced, it was announced from my memories telling me it was Image, but I know in doing our research we found out it was originally supposed to be a Vertigo book.
Right.
You know, and I was excited. I like any time a book has challenging material. And I look, I'm gonna say it right now, loud and proud. I'm a Christian. All right, I identify as a Christian. I'm a person who believes in Jesus Christ. I go to church. I'm in on all that stuff, but I don't limit my knowledge. You know what I mean? Some people feel like, oh, you're a Christian, so therefore you stay in like a lane. No, I never viewed my Christianity as that. Obviously, I like to think that. So, and I'm also someone that likes the idea that Christianity is a in and of itself is a challenging authority, because think about it, right? I mean, it it came around during the Roman Empire. It challenged an entire empire. It built itself up. It did all these things, and it's changed so many times. One of the biggest ways it changed was when a dude by the name of Martin Luther came and banged on the door and put up 95 ideas saying, "Yo, church, you got to fix this."
Right.
So when we come to nowadays, where people are still constantly challenging the ideas of religion and ideology and ideologies, I like when I see things like this come out because it serves as great conversation pieces. And when it's done tactfully, like I really believe this book is, it just opens itself up to lots of conversations to have with people. And even if it doesn't, it doesn't lead to someone saying, "Oh, I believe in Jesus," if it just leads to people coming together and saying, "Wow, I can at least have a conversation about this," that doesn't lead to anger,
Yeah.
then I think I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I love the fact that even that conversation is tackled in this book. It's fantastic.
100%. I was raised Roman Catholic. I would say I'm a bit more spiritual now than straight up religious. I went through an entire cycle that I think a lot of people end up going through, where they are raised um, religious, and then if they find themselves falling out of favor with religion, you become pragmatic, which also means you might become an atheist. And then from there, I went to spiritualism because I do believe that there are answers to the universe that we don't know. And I don't know who's pulling those strings. I do believe
Right.
that the world itself abides by a sort of cosmic math that allows everything to happen. It's all the, if I stub my toe, it's not because I have bad luck. I walked in a certain direction. I was looking in a certain direction. And the angles met and I hit my toe. Um, but it took a while for me, when I was in my edgy atheist phase, to realize that I wasn't smarter than anyone else. When you're in that sort of world, you your immediate thought is anyone who has blind faith, you're ahead of the curve because they're believing in something that you can't prove. But ultimately, all of this stuff is theory. All of this, even some of this, even science, you know.
Right.
And when this book was presented, and I read the synopsis, I thought this was going to be a little preachy. I thought the two camps this could fall into are preachy or edgy for edgy's sake. And
Mm-hmm.
I neither wanted a sermon nor did I want to rip a new one in Christianity. I don't have beef with Christianity like that, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So in my head, I'm like, what is this gonna be? And from the beginning, from when this whole thing opens up, just the language used, the tone in it is so casual, is so modern, that you can't help but be charmed by it. And one of the reasons why I ended up backing out of religion as a whole was, at least in my circle, we weren't allowed to question anything.
Right.
We
Yeah.
weren't allowed to question anything, criticize anything, say, well, that part doesn't really make sense. I went to both English and Hispanic mass on Sundays. So I was there for a long time.
Long
And
time, and in two languages, no questions.
100%, no,
Ningún pregunta.
that's it. What the word is what the word is, and you can't
That's it.
you can't question it. And that never sat right with me, because I was like, like, I'm not asking to be a blasphemer. I'm asking out of curiosity, like, how does this stuff connect? And one of the things that I loved, and we'll get into it, is how Mark Russell, the writer of this, addresses his ability to examine religion without being disrespectful or without being an out and out, like he's not doing this from a place of hate or a place of cynicism. He actually loves this, and he's trying to,
Mm-hmm.
in his own way, reinterpret all that we've been taught. And what this is his interpretation of God and Jesus, just like the entire Bible is other people's interpretation of God and Jesus.
It's the whole reason why we have how many different churches?
Yeah, and how many different versions of the Bible, right?
You know what I
Um,
mean?
and so ultimately, I left reading this book. I was impressed by its ability to tackle tough subject matter. I found myself smiling more than often than not. There's panels I've saved because they were outright funny. He has very good comedic timing in this.
Yes.
Jesus is not a pushover. He's not,
Nope.
he's not a pushover, and he's not one note, which was also very interesting because, again, I think that people have their ideas of what that religion is, and what, especially what Jesus Christ should be and what he stands for and stuff. And to constantly get this idea across that we as humans, being fallible, may have messed up his message. It's another pretty interesting part of this. But it makes me wonder, like, what do you do? I mean, I guess you go to Ahoy, but what do you do when you have a story you want to tell, and you go to a label that's supposed to be like a more adult, edgy label,
Yeah.
and you basically, I heard it was like Christian groups that were calling in, threatening to boycott and threatening to make a bigger
Yeah.
deal out of it, that ultimately got DC scared of even covering the subject matter. Which again, I feel like, had honest to God Christians read it, and honest to God Christians did read it because they wrote in on the on other issues, in the letters pages of other issues. You had
Right.
clergymen like, bro, you kind of got it, right. Like, it was a little humorous, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that open mindedness is what's going to strengthen those bonds. It's not,
Right.
don't question, don't talk, don't say anything. Kneel, stand, kneel, stand, kneel, stand.
Right.
Sing the song, sit
I,
down.
I picture Monty Python when the druids are walking
Yeah,
around
yeah,
banging their heads with the
yes,
tablets. Just come on, man.
yeah.
Like, let's have a conversation.
I thought this was incredibly interesting. Like I said, I found those parts again. Like, I just laugh. We'll get into it. But I think this is a good read. I won't lie. Volume 1 is en route to my house currently. It's a book I want to share with others because I also like to broaden other people's minds when they think of what a comic book can be. Many people, it's only the cape stuff, and there is a out and about superhero with a cape in here, but
And they also he gives it hard to the superhero community too. You know,
Oh,
he cracks
100%.
jokes. And it's great. I mean, look at this dude. Look at this
Yeah,
dude. We all
yeah,
know who that's supposed to be.
yes. Night Justice. Um, but yeah. Anything you wanted to say, spoiler free, before we get into this recap and review of this awesome book?
Just that, guys. Just like he's like Don said, have an open mind and know that this isn't meant to, I think, make anyone upset. I think this was made to so that we can sit down and have a conversation. So just take the ride with us. Take the ride with us. And it's a trinity. There are 3 volumes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if we really like this, we can do the other 2.
And again, like we're coming at this on two different sides of the spectrum, right? Of what this book would mean to those reading it. And I think that's interesting overall. This is the kind of conversation this book deserves.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we do
Right.
it justice.
Let's do it.
Here's a bit of the background information. Second Coming is a religious satire comic book series written by Mark Russell with art by Richard Pace, later joined by Leonard Kirk and Andy Troy on colors. Initially slated for release under DC's Vertigo imprint, the series faced backlash from conservative Christian groups, prompting an online petition. DC ultimately canceled the series in February of 2019, and then God gave us COVID after requesting content changes, which the creator opposed. Where do you sit on that? There. DC agrees to greenlight your book. People come and protest. They come back to you, DC Comics, Vertigo, and say, "We're still down to do it. You just got to change a couple things."
No, it's artistic integrity. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to sell out, and that's something that a guy like Mark Russell was, as at least from what I've seen of him, is all about.
yeah,
He's especially like, don't tell me one thing and then after the fact, because you got some
yeah. Free
pre-complaints
complaints. Yeah,
that I gotta change it up. Because apparently at one point DC was like, let's do this. I mean, this is the same publisher that made a book called Preacher.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and to me, this is absolutely tame compared to Preacher. So it's kind of like, I bet you Mark Russell was sitting there going to, oh, but if my name was Garth Ennis, you probably would suck it up. But
I think
Mark
I
Russell
could
isn't the
see that.
same.
I could see like book burnings just because of the cover alone. Like I can
Oh
see
yeah.
people just making up their mind about it there. But even though it was canceled in February 2019, it didn't take long because in July 2019, Second Coming found a new home with Ahoy Comics. Its first issue
Mhm.
was published in March of 2020, quite literally the month of COVID. The series has since spawned two
Did this
sequels.
did this series cause a plague?
I don't know, bro. All the evidence is there. We got to make up our own mind. The series has spawned two sequels: Second Coming, Only Begotten Son, and Second Coming, Trinity. The project, originally announced at San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2018, features covers by Amanda Conner and Richard Pace. Despite early controversy, the series gained recognition for its satirical exploration of faith and modern society. I'll be doing the recap and review. I'm the play-by-play guy. You are color. So anytime you need me to stop and we want to, sit and discuss something, if I've gone past it too fast, just let me know. But I am ready to
Mhm.
go on this road. Jesus,
Let's
take the
go.
wheel.
That's right, baby.
So, our story starts with a retelling of the book of Genesis, reminding us of the story of Adam and Eve, the forbidden fruit, and God's relationship with his creations. After casting Adam and Eve out of heaven for disobeying him, they would go on to produce offspring that populated the new world. Over time, humans became more violent and would often turn to murder or enslavement to deal with their enemies. God sent commandments down to Moses to help straighten us out, but when we misinterpreted his word, he was ready to give up on humanity. His son Jesus asks him for a chance to get through to the humans, so God allows him to be sent down to earth as a baby and live among us. Eventually, after the betrayal of Judas, Jesus is arrested, crucified, and killed by the Romans, something that God is not happy with. When Jesus returns to heaven, God forbids him from returning to earth to help humanity, especially after the way they treated him.
Mhm.
All of this was amazing. All of this was so good.
Yeah.
But my favorite part, and I have it saved on my phone and I posted it as part of Major Issues, is God watching from above and going, wait a minute, are they arresting him? Oh my God. All of that was so. And then, like, you are not going nowhere, young man. Like talking
Right.
to Jesus Christ and being like, no, you're grounded because the friends you hang out with are a bit much.
And
Um,
I love the idea of like Jesus sitting on a beanbag,
yeah,
like a
chilling.
grown man child just sitting on a bean. Man, come on, Dad. You
Yeah,
know?
I don't um expect you to be a religious scholar, but like I was always of the belief that that man did not exist until he was birthed. Is there some sort of literature? Is there any sort of literature about Jesus existing alongside God until he
Oh
was
yeah.
sent down?
Oh yeah. I
Interesting.
am also I'm
Not a scholar.
editorial note. I am not a biblical scholar. I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm just someone that has uh been a Christian for 20 some odd years. I've
Yeah.
gone to church regularly, read the Bible, you know, for the most part. And yes, there are Bible verses that do show or state that hey, Jesus was around from the beginning. This Trinity. And once God knew He needed him, he was sent to Earth. So
Okay.
if you go in like the book of John, um, where I believe John 1:1 is I states something along the lines of like I was basically always around from the beginning, and
Okay.
now I'm here.
I love the whole
You
like
know,
let me give it a try mindset.
right, right,
And
right,
I was gonna say I also like that Mark, kind of takes a dig at like this idea that God would give us a test he know we would fail, and then punish us for it. It's always been one of my takings. Like it's just like a strange thing that he would put something on Earth and then create a rule around it. But God works in mysterious. What I hear.
right. That's something I've always kind of struggle with. Like, man, you're kind of messed up.
Yeah.
It's a little messed up. It's a infinite love, but here's a buttload of temptation. You know, So it's like you can have everything except for that thing, and it's just like, well, the things you created. You know how we work, right?
Yeah.
You
So
know, you just so
some of my favorite like religious sort of comedy came from Lewis Black was saying that like because obviously the Old Testament is also a series of stories followed by Jewish men as well in Jewish. So he talks about it being like the Old Testament is a very angry, vengeful God, and then like New Testament is like we got a new character, like he's way
right,
trust me, this guy's he's way nicer, he's way better. And so I always think about it like that, like all the old like plagues and lightning and
right,
floods and
hmm
kill your son and all this other kind of stuff. And then Jesus comes like, yo, everybody chill. I got this. Like I
right,
will be the kinder hand, I will guide. So and I just like these are all biblical stories, but I just like how plainly they're put. And then my
right.
favorite is when God shows up in front of Adam and Eve as this big
Yeah, it's just
horrifying face, and what does he say? Do not be
be
afraid.
afraid.
Yeah, it's like
No,
scary.
and then there's a poignant line that he writes in there too, where he's just like, hey man, like he wanted to be loved and feared,
Yeah,
whereas like those two kind of things they don't go hand in hand, they go kind of opposite.
yeah.
And it's true, don't be afraid. How do you not be afraid of this thing, and how do you just love something that you're just terrified of?
That's why I think it's an interesting, almost good cop, bad cop situation, right? You are a follower of Christ, but you are God fearing, right?
Right,
So like you have both hands there, the carrot and the stick. So in current day, Earth's greatest superhero, Sunstar, confronts some robot bank robbers in Urban City. He delivers swift vigilante justice to the goons and is cheered on by onlookers. This makes God take notice, and he makes Jesus watch as well. Like, yo, you gotta check this out, which I thought was really funny too.
like,
Uh,
come here, man. That's like your dad, calling you, dude,
yeah,
look, you got to be like this guy, man. I
yeah.
want you to be like this guy.
He's
And
got all
that's
straight
just
A's.
right. Think about that. God telling Jesus, man, you messed up, but
Yeah,
this guy got it. It's
he's
just
figured it
the
out.
comedy. What's funny is, as for much flack as I'm pretty sure this thing got just for the idea of doing something on Jesus,
Mhm.
the depiction of God to me was almost like offensive even to me. I was like, man, I hate to
Right.
think of God as just this. He's just this jackass.
Yeah.
He's really just a jackass, and
Yeah.
God is a jackass in this.
Yeah.
And it was like, as someone who's like, man, I pray to this. thing. You know what I mean? So to have it depicted. But when you read some of these stories, even as a Christian, you have to sit there and go, well, even in the Old Testament, there are some loving stories. There are plenty of stories that also show God's love.
Right.
But everybody remembers pillar of salt, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah,
Yeah.
plagues and all this stuff.
Floods, 40
So
days, 40 nights.
yeah, you know what I mean. So and you constantly remind them, well, he gave him a chance. He gave him a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like, it sounds like the mafia almost. Hey, all I said was give me the protection money.
It's funny. Like, I've always known that Jesus is the conduit to God. That's how it was always presented to me, right? But what I think is really interesting that they posit here, and it doesn't. They don't get to this to the last issue, but it's this idea that God tried his best, and then he was over it, and then he was like,
Yeah,
"I'm just gonna leave them to themselves, and whatever happens, happens." And Jesus comes down to teach us almost how to live without God, to know that
right.
He exists, but find godhood in each other in a kind of way. And I didn't expect that from like I said. I think it serves the same narrative overall, but it's just a
Mm-hmm.
different way of looking at the whole dichotomy.
Yeah.
Um. So later, Sunstar's partner Sheila Sharp has a more than awkward interaction with a woman from an adoption agency, made worse by the fact that Sunstar was unavailable to attend said meeting. She is a jerk, but I also have heard that adoption is pretty hard. I hear
Yeah.
that people got to go
I
through some.
mean, this I love the fact that you're immediately presented with the humanity of this character,
Yeah,
where it's an obviously a lampoon of Superman,
right.
but it's not Superman. This is more like this is like the cut the what's that character from the National Lampoons? The cousin Eddie, the
Oh yeah,
cousin
yeah,
Eddie
yeah.
version of Superman
Right, right,
almost.
right. Yeah.
Like this guy's, the the way he takes care of the robots, the way he even carries himself. Like he
On
seems.
second reading, that robot shit is hilarious. It's so funny
Ooh.
because that's the first thing he does is behead one of them. We'll get
Like
to why that's funny in a bit.
right, but even still, like just the viciousness. Like okay, this is not Superman.
Yeah,
And but it's still the humanity that you still see of this person immediately. Like he wants to adopt a child. He's dealing with immigration issues. You
yeah,
know, so you're immediately introduced to a much more human Superman, so to
but
speak, in my opinion.
100%. And like the whole thing, one of the things with Superman that they try to do right is they'll have Pod can't die of natural causes, and the idea is that no matter how many powers Superman has, he can't stop that.
Right. Right.
I like that immediately after watching him do a tremendous feat in stopping this bank robbery. We are immediately introduced to a situation he cannot save or solve with his powers, which is the fact that they are trying to have a child. And
Right.
he's an alien, and so their physiology won't allow them to have a child. So now they're going to adopt, and it doesn't matter if he can fly, faster than a locomotive, if they won't sign off on it. You know, the powers that be won't sign off on
Yeah.
it. So did I do that? Oh yeah, seeing that Sunstar is an alien, they cannot conceive. I'm stepping on my own self. They cannot conceive of their own children, and if they can't pass their evaluation, adoption will be out of the cards as well. In heaven, God is shown to. This is the way I put it. In heaven, God is shown simultaneously to have a sense of humor while also being constantly annoyed by humanity.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from him. It's like when he tells that guy, "Oh no, oh my God, you're here. You're supposed to be in the lake of fire."
Like a
The
fire,
guy's like,
man,
"Oh my God,
forever,
what?"
forever. And then he's just like, see, nobody likes the constant jokester, all right? All right,
Yeah,
now go,
get in
now go,
there.
now get in there, go get some food, man, have a good time.
He's chewing out the guy for praying, but before he eats, because he's like, "You're in heaven already. What are you doing?"
Like, relax, man.
Yeah, really, really funny stuff. Um, uh, yeah, he tells Jesus he needs to toughen up after playing a prank on one of the new arrivals in heaven. Back on Earth, Sunstar and Sheila comfort one another after another round of adoption rejections. Later that night, God appears to them and begs Sunstar to teach Jesus how to be a more forceful leader. Without giving him a chance to think on this, God leaves Jesus with Sunstar. The next morning, Sunstar takes Jesus with him to bust up a counterfeiting ring, but leaves him outside so he doesn't get in the way. You remember what they were counterfeiting?
Our boy John Escudero's favorite kind of card, baby.
Yeah,
Pokemon card.
Pokemon cards. A counterfeit Pokemon card ring.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Ridiculous.
What? Hey man, currency's currency. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you lying. They're like, what do we do? They make them fight each other. It's like cockfighting for kids.
Yeah. It's like, man, come on, this is gonna make us some money. And then not only that, but the comedy of like a Superman character dealing with this situation.
It seems so like beneath him, and
Like,
so like
why are you here, man?
yeah.
Get night justice. Get night
Yeah,
justice.
yeah, please. He needs something to throw his boomerang at.
You
Um,
know?
our hero pummels the criminals and tosses them outside. When he goes out to interrogate them, they're gone. When he asks Jesus where they went, Jesus simply says, "I healed them." Some star says you can't just heal people because they're in pain, because some are evil. When asked why they're evil, Sunstar realizes it's because they're in pain. The subject changes when Jesus sees crosses everywhere and gets triggered. Sunstar tells him that the cross is a symbol of the religion based on him. And Jesus is a bit insulted that his crucifixion is all people took away from his time on earth. He tells a story about how he grew up on earth with a dear friend who became a carpenter. As fate would have it, that friend would fabricate the cross Jesus himself was nailed to. And the rest of the world shunned that man for working with the Romans. Jesus forgave him at his lowest moment, day of his crucifixion. Is this a Bible story? I've never heard this. Brother Carpenter.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not aware of the story either. But this also, I wouldn't be surprised if this were in some book or work or something out there, because there are other, how do you say, what's the word, like gospel, so to speak. You
Yes.
know, and I say that gingerly,
Yes. Right.
because they're not totally accepted. They, you know, I believe at one point somebody
Non-canon.
felt that they're non-canon. That's right. They're what do you call that? What do you call that? Fan fiction. Fan fiction.
Fan fiction.
It's fan fiction, and I wouldn't be surprised if like this is something that somebody tried to say, oh, you know, this was a piece of the Bible, but then it was not allowed in,
In
or
the final
something
cut.
like that, you know, because like even the idea of like even something like Lilith,
Yeah.
right, the mother of all monsters, that is said to in certain Jewish Bibles be mentioned in Genesis, but yet in other Bibles it's not spoken about.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this was out there. I totally forgot about this detail on my reread this time, and I was like, oh wow, it flew past me, and I sat here going, like, where did this come from? I didn't have time to do the research on it, but it was very poignant. But I do think it comes up in later volumes again.
Oh, interesting.
Because Shyman is brought up in the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
If you remember, and then he's brought up again with making the crucifix, and I was like, Urgh. So
yeah,
but,
but they said his name so definitively. I'm like, am I missing something? I do not remember this character.
I felt the same way.
But I thought it was well done. I think all this stuff, when it like switches artwork to almost like a more biblical style, I think it's really effective.
Very, and I was going to point that out. That was one thing I even forgot that about it. When I seen that, I said, wow, I don't remember the art being this good.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I mostly remember this, which, you know, hey, I can't draw this good.
Yeah.
It's good artwork. But that
almost Renaissance painting sort of
Renaissance looking type art was very, very good. I like, just like you, I really like that. So when it switches to that mode, it adds a level of gravitas to it.
100%.
And I really liked it. And yeah, I almost wanted to hear more about this shaman
yeah
character, you know what I mean? But yeah, again, I like that immediately the book doesn't shame Jesus, you know, doesn't lampoon him, doesn't make him a joke. He's clearly in one of the last pages of the first issue. He's shorter, and I love that. That they maintain the idea that yes, a man from that time period would have been smaller
100%
than this giant Superman character. And I love the fact that he's looking up to him, but yet still maintaining his integrity. Like, yo, I'm Jesus, and this is what I would do. This is how I do. You know, I don't just sit around beating up people because they're in pain. You know, I heal them. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And so so like I think just at the end of this first issue here, it clearly sets up, okay, Mark is taking Jesus seriously. He's not taking him as a joke. He's totally taking God as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's but in some ways I totally understand why you would present God this way, right? Because that Old Testament God is vicious. But here we go now with, oh, okay, because the way this book for me, when like you say earlier, you said you felt that this book would go one of two ways, either um
Preachy or edgy.
or edgy. I was afraid that this book was just going to be an absolute joke. That
Yeah.
the only thing it was going to be filled with was punchlines and
Yeah.
punchlines at Jesus. Like, oh man, let's just constantly make fun of the BS of Jesus. But you could tell, wow, no, this guy is somebody that even if he's not, say, a Christian, you could tell you've read the book, you were probably raised
Yeah.
Christian in some way, and there's really there's really no reason why anyone should should be mad about Jesus. And that's
Right.
something I've always found to be interesting because whether you're a Christian or not, if you hear about this guy and you don't say Jesus, most people would say, "Man, that sounds like a cool guy, man."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That guy was at a party and he kept the party going. That's
Yeah.
dope. I want that guy at my party.
We didn't even have
Oh man, that
food, and then he brought fish.
yo, he turned one plate into 5,000.
Right.
That's like an abuela right there,
A
bro.
hundred
You know what I'm saying?
percent.
When you come to your abuela's house, you're like, abuela, you all you have is rice and chicken.
Yeah.
Jeez, and next thing you know, you eating a feast. You're
Yep.
like, wow, gracias a Dios patilla.
A
You know,
hundred percent.
so the way he's presenting Jesus here is cool.
Yeah.
And I was really I was expecting at the end of this first issue when I first collected the series to be like, yeah, I get the joke and I'm done with the series and I see what you're doing. This just made me go, I gotta keep reading this.
They restrained from having like the cliche like total fish out of water stuff, right? Like that would have been the easy stuff, right? Like Jesus not knowing what a cell phone is or how to use social media, right? That would have been the easy
Mm-hmm.
joke, the easy punchline stuff that doesn't really say anything about any of the characters or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um there are moments in this, maybe this is a bit deep, but there are moments in this that if you do believe in a God, you have to believe that he's speaking through Mark in moments in this. Uh, this is one of the moments. It was just the end of this. I actually wrote down exactly what was said because I was like, huh, just another way to present Jesus, another way to present his teachings in Christianity. But he says, "You think punishment is what brings salvation to the human race? It isn't. People don't believe in God so much as they hope for a witness to their suffering. And the world isn't saved by violence, by bribery, by power. It's saved by being brave enough to not be intimidated, by being honest enough to not be bribed. And when we fail, it is saved one act of kindness at a time." Like, does that speak like a blasphemer? Does
No,
that speak like somebody who wanted
no.
to, really wanted to rip a new one into Christianity? No, I mean, and it he said there's another like bar that he dropped in the letter from the author that he writes at the end of this issue where he
Mm-hmm.
basically explains that it was blacklisted from several different publishers and he went with
Mm-hmm.
Ahoy. But one of the things that he said was like a lot of people were accusing him of being a blasphemer, and he realized that to certain people blasphemy is simply thinking.
Right.
And I never
And
thought
think
about that either. And I was like, well, if
and
thinking
you
for yourself is
guess
off the it's off is if thinking for yourself is off the table, that's not a very attractive table to me.
no. I mean and guess who was called the blasphemer?
Jesus was. Jesus
Yeah,
was.
exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because he was coming in challenging the authority.
Yeah.
And now modern people come in and challenge the authority and they're called blasphemers. It's like, or maybe they're looking for an answer.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone to just say, hey man, let's talk.
Right.
And that's what I loved about this. That's what I love about this book because even on my reread, which is why I'm literally, even though I reread it, even in rereading it, I'm remembering all these little poignant things and it's just flaring up the neurons, and I'm sitting there going, wow, there's so many, even like the Easter eggs that I know I'm catching. God, like there's so much to this book. There's
Yeah.
so much to this book, and it's just a great conversation piece, especially with the turmoil that's going on in the world right now
Yeah.
between all the wars and all these pockets of the planet that a lot of people will tell you this is biblical,
Yeah.
right? Okay, well let's have a. But then the moment someone says that,
Yeah, you can't.
people
Yeah.
get angry
Blasphemy.
and no one wants to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
blasphemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, talk about it. Talk about it. Sit down. Like, grab a drink. Talk about
Yeah, and
it.
like I said, if you want this to be something that spreads, you have to talk about it. Once people are not allowed to talk about it anymore, that's where it dies. That's how legend
There it
dies.
is.
And so seeing that, and another thing I'll say about Jesus in this book is that he is like, while you'll see him in moments like waver a bit and have a little bit of self doubt, he is 100% conviction. He's 100%. He, when the things he says, he doesn't say, "Well, maybe," or whatever. It's all very
Mhm.
matter of fact. He speaks with uh, 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 a level of, like, as you were saying before, gravitas befitting of of the Son of God in this.
Right.
It's all very simple and elementary to him. So when he espouses his beliefs, it's not with any doubt in his mind. That's how he sees it. That's facts laid bare to him. It's interesting. I pointed that out because I don't even know if Sunstar has that much conviction, and he's the one that's
No.
supposed to be training Jesus. And so he ultimately ends up getting turned by Jesus because he doesn't really stand for anything. He thinks he knows why he does the things that he does, but Jesus shows another way to do things that could
Right.
ultimately yield the results that he wants, as opposed to the math that he's already doing in his head, which is, might is right, which is what a lot of
Right.
God is trying to get Jesus. We're finding out that it doesn't always have to be plan A or B. It could be C, D, F, G,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And I like that how they present that here. So in our second issue, Sunstar is shocked to find out that the robot bank robbers he stopped were actually humans in mech suits.
Humans.
He goes to a superhero support group after learning he beheaded an actual human being attempting to stop the robbery. Jesus accompanies him as he is vulnerable about his ability to be a hero and one day later, Sheila calls and tells Sun. This is one of my favorite stories in this. Later, Sheila calls and tells Sunstar that she has a stalker, and he's adamant about taking care of it, even though Sheila tells him not to. When they get to Sunstar's apartment, God is there, disappointed that Sunstar hasn't taught his son how to be a tougher leader. Brings him to heaven and explains that as God, he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. Humanity is always veering towards destruction, either way. Tells Sunstar that Jesus has way too much faith in mankind and doesn't understand what it means to be a man of action and to lead. God tells him to stop worrying about a few casualties, as that's inevitable. So Sunstar takes Jesus to Sheila's job, where her security guard Gary gives Sunstar the address of the man harassing her. They fly to that location, and our hero busts through the door and immediately berates the man inside, who acts as if he has no idea what's going on. After a game of good cop and bad cop with Jesus there, and a melting of a statue for intimidation, Sunstar leaves the residence proud that he had used God's advice and he's made a difference. Like, yep, see? A little bit of wrath. We're all good. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
it. And that works.
Later, when he finds out that the stalker returned, sees red, and disregarding Jesus' concerns, flies back to the address Gary gave him, rips the ceiling back like a tin can, and blasts the guy with his heat vision. Satisfied by his vigilante justice, he returns home and is shocked the next morning to find that the stalker had been captured by police and was not the man Sunstar saw earlier.
It's like, oh, that's what a stalker looks like.
I'm laughing at this on reading of notes I had taken over my second read.
Right.
You could imagine how much I was dying when I first read this, because all the dominoes start to fall. As soon as you find out the other guy got arrested, you're like, oh wait, oh, none of this is so perfect. A perfect amount of comic relief in this, but also a poignant message, because he was trying to lead with violence and lead with might and
Right.
with no regard, casualties.
Right. Well, I mean, because this whole issue is presenting the differences in how God and Jesus classically have dealt with things, right? It's
Yeah.
people he in this issue he goes through, he shows the Ark of the Covenant, he shows, Moses and all these big acts that, like, God just goes, yeah, it did like that. You had to I it's kind of like the way the military, right? You what is that
Like the
term in the
ranks.
military? Not just acceptable losses.
Oh yes, yes,
Acceptable
yes.
losses. Hey, they're acceptable losses, man. It's just bound to
Go
happen.
go
It's
to go to
okay. It's a
retail breakage. You got a little bit of
breakage.
breakage. You got a little bit
Yeah,
of
it happens.
yeah, yeah.
You know, if you want to make a good omelet, you're gonna break a couple eggs. It's just what happens.
And his other perspective is like if your whole thing is like you're afraid of causing the loss of life. If you don't do anything, humans will just cause the loss of life. He's like, this is just
Right.
what happened. So like,
Hmm.
don't you're gonna lose lives regardless. So don't worry too much about it. But
But
yeah,
Jesus is trying to be the conscience. He's like, hey man, slow down,
yeah,
slow down. There's different ways to do this. I watched my dad do it like this. Let's do it something a little different. And what I like is this part of the story reminds me of a lot of times how convicted uh believers sometimes become, right?
yeah,
Because he's literally walking with God.
yeah.
So and he's thinking, I'm in the right. I'm
A
walking with God.
100%.
Therefore, I'm in the right. And a lot of people go through this in their walks as religious people, whether all religions
Yeah,
people deal with this. I mean, that's the whole reason you get people blowing up buses and blowing themselves up,
yeah.
and you get people saying they should burn certain churches down, or all everybody. I'm talking everyone. For every religion, there is a level of terrorism. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about any one religion. This is goes for
No, no,
across the
no.
board.
Fanatics in every religion.
Fanatics.
There's
Thank you.
fanatics in every religion.
Excellent. There are fanatics in everything. And in this situation, Sunstar, the Superman character, is a fanatic. He's sitting there going, I just walked with God. I got the point. I got the message. Man, you didn't. Just to show you how you didn't get the message, the numbers were wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
And
It was
and
just
you didn't
something that
stop to
simple.
think about that. You
Nope.
went and accosted a man. He told you he didn't have no idea what you were
Right.
doing, and maybe if you slowed down and had a conversation, you would have found out the very first time that this wasn't the guy you were looking for. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, he has been spending the last 24 hours harassing an innocent man. um, he confesses to Jesus that he messed up, and Jesus tells him that in his experience, force usually fails. He also mentions that mercy often fails too, but it does so more pleasantly. And I agree. I agree.
It does.
Have some grace, have
Absolutely.
some mercy. It doesn't always work, but force in every aspect of all your problems, that's not going to work either. That's definitely not going to work.
No. No. And I mean, we see it nowadays.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about things of heavenly principle, or you're thinking about just human, right?
Yeah.
No one likes seeing aggressors.
Right.
You can't pick a side right now between Israel and Palestine without somebody throwing something.
100%. And
And
it's
it,
all
you
perspective.
know, and it's all perspective because no one likes seeing aggressive. No one is really turned by that. I believe, in and of itself, that's the reason why, even as a believer, you're taught, hey man, God realized I gotta send some love.
Yeah.
I gotta send some love. This throwing meteors at the planet and flooding it and killing people, and hey man, you got to do all these rituals and stuff like that. This doesn't seem to be working.
Maybe we can eat meat on some Fridays. Maybe
You know, so hey, hey, come here, son. Come here, son.
yeah.
You've been around me since the beginning.
Yeah.
Go down there,
Give him a gift
show them
basket.
another way. Show them another way.
And and like I said, this is not like none of this is done in sympathy. Jesus just says a matter of fact. This is how he sees it. He just brings it up again. It's like and I love that he's also like, you're not the first guy to walk with my dad and and like get things wrong. Like so many great men
Mm-hmm.
have.
Yeah.
And
Some of the biggest heroes of the Bible. Moses ran from his destiny. He killed somebody, ran from his destiny. David, David had the empire of biggest empire in the world on his shoulders, and gave it all up for a piece of ass.
yeah,
These are fallible people, fallible people. So the fact that like nowadays, so many people are so quick to just say, "Oh, look, who are you to tell me anything about religion? You're so imperfect." If you're looking for a perfect person to present something to you and be that perfect mindset, you're never gonna find it.
yeah.
It's when we all sit down and realize, hey, maybe together we can be perfect and figure this out.
That's the other thing.
Hard thing.
What is the point of being like super religious if it pulls you away from humanity. Like, would you rather be so close to God that you're not close to anybody else?
Well, and unfortunately, you do get that mindset.
100%.
You do get people with that mindset. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry to say, I was raised Latino Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
You were as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have dealt with people like that in the family. Oh, I'm secluded. I'm, what do they say? I'm set aside.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, you, you think that's what God wants?
You're right. That's what I'm
That's how
saying.
I see it. That's how
Yeah.
I see it. You know what I
Same.
mean?
Same. Um, so our third issue begins with a holy roller, Jesus, at a bowling alley, having a great time, while Sunstar reads the newspaper looking for a supervillain activity. When he finds out that a city received a cryptic ransom note, he traces the note back to an apartment and finds an 18-year-old villain on the toilet, happily reading about himself. Sunstar immediately begins to berate him, but Jesus tries to convince him that might isn't always right, because if it was, why does he still have so many villains? That's a superhero poke at a superhero fandom.
Yep,
General is
especially
like,
Batman.
yeah, it's like they're still around, bro. You did all that.
Yep.
You blew up all those buildings. They're still here.
Yeah. What I love is just when he's talking about, yeah, man, just look around the yellow pages and real estate things, and you'll eventually figure out, oh, a villain is building
That's a layer.
yeah. That's a layer. You know,
Right.
$68 billion building being built, probably a villain. I love that. I love that. How easy it is in this world, and probably if these things were happening in real life, and as the way the comics like to depict them, it would be real easy to figure some of this stuff out.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
wholeheartedly. And the thing is, they're like, oh, well, how are we gonna figure this out? And then like any comedy, you turn the page and you see a community college, and they decide to enroll the young man into community college after approving of his major. And again, so like, they cut to the community college. I'm like lightly smiling. They do the joke about film theory, him trying to take film theory as a major, and they're like, "No, you're gonna do a real major."
Real major.
And
None of that artsy fartsy crap.
And I'm smiling from
as we as we sit here doing our artsy fartsy stuff.
100%. But as I'm smiling ear to ear, bro, when he goes, and you know what? You better make sure you never miss a day of school. I'm putting a tracker on you, and it was very clearly
a hole puncher.
A hole puncher.
And the funny part about it is, I'm thinking he came up with that on the fly because they're at a community college. Like, oh, he saw a hole puncher. Yeah. My man had that in his boot. Yeah, he's like, this is something he's been running with probably for years. Like, you think superheroes have like this technology? You know, like Spider-Man with his spider tracer and all this stuff. Like, nah, man. It's just, I just tell people that they're gonna listen to a guy who's flying and shoots laser beams out of his eyes. They ain't taking no chances.
Bro, I thought I died. Because Jesus like, did you really put a tracker on him? I was like, no, it was just a hole punch.
Click, click.
Just scaring it reminded me like the Punisher, the popsicle. It's running like all that sort of like, it doesn't matter. You think it's what it is, and that's all that matters in this instance. You think it's a tracker, so your eyes is gonna stay on the straight and narrow. Things seem fine until Sheila calls Ken to tell him that his grandmother has gone missing from her retirement home. Sunstar leaves Jesus behind to tend to this emergency, heads to Sheila, and they go to his childhood neighborhood of Littleton, which is like the Smallville for this Superman analog.
Yeah. Littleton. Sounds like another town I'm aware of.
Littleton. This change. A lot has changed in Littleton. Once a quaint small town, now swallowed up by the nearby city. This change is shown no more greatly than when they drive past Ken's old home and has been turned into a sex shop. When I first read this, I read this too fast, and he was telling a story about his friend Billy, and I thought this was Billy's house. So when they later get the grandma from out of here, I was like, oh, that's terrible. Drive up to your old crib, and it's just a bunch of dildos in the window. Yeah, no judgment. I'm just saying that's a culture shock if you're expecting to see your childhood home.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna turn it into like a virility thing. Oh, it's a sex shop because this is where Sunstar is, so you come here to
get your Spanish fly, your sunflower.
Enhance yourself, But no, it's just that it's just the culture of the town has now become this.
Yes. And nowhere in this is it like deemed as like deviant or deviancy. It's just where it's at. It's
Right.
not. It's not just because it exists.
I think
Else,
it's I think it was just I think it was just commentary on the way American towns do flip.
yeah, yeah,
You know, because you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. You see towns go from conservative to liberal and back. You constantly see it. I
yeah.
mean, look at the last 8 years, y'all.
It's been bonkers.
Yeah.
Um, Elsewhere, Jesus walks the streets, bewildered by what has become of his image and mankind as a whole. He finds refuge in a LGBT-friendly bar where he is approached by the devil himself. Jesus tells him they have nothing to discuss, but his interest is piqued when the devil tells him God intends to destroy the world. He explains that God held a grudge against humanity for crucifying Jesus, and if they were to hurt him again while he's on earth this time, he's going to pull the plug on earth forever. Although Jesus says he does not believe him, the devil does not try to convince him further and instead leaves him with a homophobe who is protesting the LGBT bar's existence.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We'll get back to there in a bit. Sunstar finds his grandma at the sex shop that used to be his childhood home to take her back to her retirement home where he is advised to upgrade her living situation. But he doesn't have the money, so he leaves her there. Sunstar and his boo head home, and she asks about Jesus, and Sunstar realizes that he doesn't know where he is. Speaking of Jesus, him and the homophobe get into a hilarious and spirited debate about what is in the Bible and who wrote it. This is the only inside Bible joke I get is that he keeps insisting that Jesus knows a guy named Paul, and Jesus keeps saying, "I don't know a Paul, bro. I don't know a Paul." Famously, Paul was Saul,
Right.
and so just seeing how frustrated Jesus is getting with them being like, "No, like he was there," and he's like, "No, I was there.
No,
I was,
I
there
was
was
there.
no Paul. Stop.
There's no
Who in the
Paul.
hell is Paul?"
Who's Paul?
He's like, "I
Yeah.
told Peter to write the gospel."
Right. No, it's even all of it. Even from the very beginning when the guy first says to him, "You know what the Bible says on this?"
Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, I know this is like kind of limiting the idea of Jesus being all knowing like God, but Jesus never even, and everyone will tell you this. Even the most scholarly Christian person will tell you Jesus never wrote anything. Everybody wrote for him.
Right.
And I love how I believe Chris Rock put it. I'm trying to remember which comedian put it, where it's just like all of them swore they were, how like they told their version of it or their perspective on the story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just funny how he like riffs on they riff on it, like, oh, this is the most important part you got to worry about. This is the most important part.
Their
And
important part. Their part is the most
yeah,
important.
their important part. And then, but then the funniest thing is later on, some guy goes, "Yeah, man, Jesus came and talked to me on the road, and inspired me to write some more stuff." Which that is one of those situations where a tremendous amount of faith comes in, right? The
Right.
idea that someone who never met Jesus is telling you, "Yo, I met Jesus. I met him on the road to Damascus, and he inspired me to stop killing Christians and start telling Christians, hey, this is the best way to live." And a lot of that stuff, those are some of the most divisive books of the Bible,
Right.
because a lot of that stuff in those books, as loving as they are, they're also a lot of that touch of fire and brimstone in those parts too. And
Totally.
it's always funny because like Jesus is saying in this book, it's like, whoa, Paul, he didn't hang out with us. It was Judas,
Yeah. He's like,
it
I
was
remember.
Peter, it was Matthew,
I was
Mark,
there. I think I
Paul.
remember. I don't remember a Paul,
You
bro.
know, so I like the idea that of this book bringing it up, but not hitting you over the head with it. It almost invites you to just have that conversation of, well, why would Jesus say he doesn't know Paul? That's the guy who wrote all those books, right? He's like, well, he wasn't one of the original apostles.
Yeah.
Why did Christianity, the Catholic Church or whatever church, allow for those books? But you can imagine, I would imagine there have been many other people who have attested to such a similar fate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw God, I saw Jesus, and it inspired me to write this whole long story, and it should be in the Bible. And nah,
And
not that one.
they do quality control and cut some parts out.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
found it very apropos as well that they, like you said, when he first approaches him, he's like, you know what the Bible says about gays, whatever. He doesn't even know. He says something like,
Right.
I think that's what it says, or something like that. And it's just this
Mhm.
idea like wrong and strong, like so ignorant, but really standing on your on what you think your beliefs are
Yeah.
here in this moment. And like I said, just seeing Jesus, he's daring man, get frustrated as someone tries to tell him what his life was, what his teachings were, who his friends were. Was
How
very
you gonna tell me about my
Yeah, it
life?
was very interesting because he doesn't get frustrated, but he gets frustrated here. Um, when the man insists it was a man named Paul, things get heated and other protesters start beating on Jesus. The cops
Yeah.
nearby hear the commotion and arrest him. As he is in his holding cell, the devil makes deals with the nation of Turk,
I know.
Turkia, Turkia, Turkia.
I don't know.
We're gonna go.
I feel like there's a joke there. Like I
Yeah,
guarantee you, if you translate this in some way to some Eastern European language, it probably means like jackass or something,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I'm gonna go with Turkia.
Sure, sure.
Shirkia. Jesus is saddened to realize that the world is just as violent as when he left. In his eyes, in his mind, he knew he took a long time to return, but wonders why on why no one on earth believes him. This is one of those affecting moments where the art changes and it shows
Yes.
him and he's beat up and he's just like damn, I said I was gonna come back and I knew I took a long time, but like now I'm here. Why isn't no one believing me? That was really
No.
affecting.
And
Garber thing.
for me, the as a Christian, I see this and I felt it. This reminded me of like watching like the Passion of the Christ, but also at the same time recognizing this probably would happen.
Yeah.
And even in other mediums with similar characters, they've shown this as well. One of my favorite episodes of the Boondocks is where the idea of what if Martin Luther King Jr. had
Yeah,
survived
came
the
back.
assassination attempt, and how people would have crapped all over him because of the idea of, hey man, let's not go to Vietnam. We have to love everybody, being peaceful. And people were screaming at him, what? How dare you say that? No way.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there going, do you not know who I am?
And
I'm like,
it's very much die. Why is it die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain?
I've become the villain. Yep.
And simultaneously, like Martin Luther King, Jesus's words and sometimes his teachings have been co-opted by some of the worst people pretending to be tolerant. You know, you have the most racist person in the world be like, "But Dr. King said, he didn't see color." It's like, well, no, he said he said that the black people were given a bad check and that they still have not gotten what they deserve. Like he said all that
Right.
too. Like you remember the nice part that
Mm-hmm.
fits your narrative, but you're not remembering all this other part that where he talks about black people being disenfranchised by this country. And it's similar to Christianity. Christianity, the worst people practice it cherry pick.
Yeah.
They cherry pick the parts that they like and then they throw out everything else. And you can't do that to the guy who lived it, who's standing right there going, "What are you talking about?" Jesus is looking at everybody like, "Come on." So I thought all of that was extremely well put. And like I said, um, when he switches over, he didn't come to anyone with any anger. He didn't go up to that guy with
No.
anger.
No.
Um, and another thing I wanted to say because you were talking about how the story branches off with different people writing it. Stuff. One of my favorite things that I learned about religion, especially the Abrahamic religion, so Islam, Judaism, Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
is that they all have the same beginning, and they've all agreed that that is how. Because how do you create a branch if you don't acknowledge the root? Right? If
Yeah.
if you
Mm-hmm.
have a million, let's say a million Jews in the world, let's say there was only a million people in the world, and they're all Jewish. If you want to convince any of them out of a new religion, you tell them, "Oh yeah, everything you learned was right, but then this set of things happened. You
Right.
didn't
It
know that.
changes.
You didn't
It
know
changes.
that.
Right.
It goes here." And so this idea that we have three religions that all like with the thinnest hair agree to the beginning of how all this started, but then
Mm-hmm.
go, but that guy they say is a prophet and he's not. Well, no, actually, that guy they say is a prophet and he's not. you know,
He's not right.
and and
Well,
then just
that guy says he's the son of God.
yeah, no. That's blasphemy. You understand? But they cannot question that beginning because it uproots all of it. So they all
Right.
agree to the beginnings of the story, and I think that's so interesting. and then from there they spiral out. Um, so the next day, Sunstar gets the guys in his support group to help him find Jesus. I love that they say that as a joke as well. It's like, yeah, well, no, I literally need help finding Jesus. Um, and I love that.
I just want to quickly say probably my favorite characters introduced at this point.
Is
My
it
man
is it
Robot.
robot? And you're like, why
that is
would
just
you
a
even
dad
need
joke. That
him?
is just a dad joke.
Yeah, why would you need him? What would he? What? Anyway, what's the
I just
lady's
love it.
name? Razor something. Chick is
That girl.
Razor something. I forget,
I don't remember.
what I
I
love
just
is
remember losing it with Robot. I was just like, because that's
yeah,
just like
robot's
dad
great.
joke Robot, and I love the fact later on he's like, I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
And think about the complexity of that joke.
Yeah.
Because somebody created him. So
Right.
there is a
He
God
has a
to that
creator.
person.
He has a creator.
He has a creator, but he's like, no, I don't believe in him.
I don't believe in him. I'm laughing because that girl Razor, I can't remember her name, but she has Razor in her superhero name. She, like, no matter where they go, she's like, he's probably in jail. And they're like, no, we should check you. I think he's in prison.
Does he? No. Does he look white? Nah, not really. Yeah, he's in jail.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
in jail.
he's
The social commentary there was like, oh,
100%. Like, I'm almost certain he's in jail. Speaking of prison, Jesus becomes friends with his cellmate Larry, who asks him if life is meant to be enjoyable. Jesus doesn't have a straight answer. Sheila gets a tip that Jesus is indeed in the downtown prison, having been arrested for his erratic behavior. In Germany, the devil meets secretly with one of God's angels and offers a proposition. If God brings him back into the fold, back into the kingdom of heaven, he will protect his son on earth. In the mess hall, Jesus gets mistaken for a Mexican, which causes a Nazi to confront him. When things get heated, the Nazi attempts to stab Jesus with a spork, but Larry takes the hit instead. I don't even know how hard you would have to stab somebody to kill them with a spork. Is that possible? Can you kill somebody with a spork?
Yep.
Lee. I would think
As someone that used to work in the jail.
Yeah. I can see the other end. Shiv science. But the spoon part?
You know, with enough time, you can create a weapon out of newspaper. Think about that. So, the story doesn't go into the details of that, of course.
No,
but I'm pretty sure that was probably like a special spork.
Right.
It's all about conviction, man. It's all about conviction.
It's also very affecting to see Larry jump in the way of the spork. And he just started talking to Jesus, and he's already going to die for him. He doesn't die, but later, sitting by the injured Larry, Jesus wonders how everyone could have gotten his message so wrong. He believes humanity is too far gone, twisting his words to suit their own destructive narrative. Larry suggests he conduct miracles, but Jesus says, once you start with the magic tricks, you can't stop, which I thought was pretty funny too.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, Jesus, some of the greatest feats that Jesus ever did was just giving pep talks.
Yeah.
But the moment the miracles started happening, that's when people really started flocking towards him.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's just like, you start doing parlor tricks. That's what gets people excited. Nobody wants to just kind of like talking movies, right? Man, there's a lot of talking in this movie, but the moment something explodes,
like, oh yeah.
Now I want to watch.
But then it's not. But then you have to keep doing it to keep them there. It's not just like you do them and you attract them. Now that's what you do now. You're a magician. So Sunstar and company drive to rescue Jesus, but they get stuck in traffic. When they arrive, Sunstar creates an elaborate breakout plan, but is surprised to hear they could just sign him out. I thought that was pretty funny. He was like, you go in there and you cut the lights. You go in there and you take out the security system. And then his girlfriend's like, we could just sign him out. They'll just release him to our custody.
Sweet. It's just the idea of again, like, hey man, sometimes you don't need to break a wall and blow something up. You just, hey, can we do this?
Yeah, ask.
Can we talk?
Yeah,
can we talk?
That's it. We should. The world should all talk more.
Seriously.
Jesus finishes his talk with Larry, mentioning his regrets and how his entire sermon has been co-opted by the worst of the worst. As he's released into custody, he tells Larry to spread his word. Elsewhere, God meets with the devil to hear him out. And what a brilliant like cliffhanger, you know. And
I love the fact that God is wearing an LGBTQ hat.
yeah, yeah. And he's like I said, he's presented so ridiculous in this, but you would assume someone who's lived that long and is the creator of all things has to have a sense of humor, has to find ways to entertain himself because he's been doing this for a very very long time.
You know, I mean, think about it, right? I think God is being depicted as someone who's been around for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
has tried a lot. Because as the story progresses, too, you get into how like God becomes jaded.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
You-
this was not like he created us, instantly had disdain for us and left. He created us, saw our nature, tried to do things to curve our nature. We still did what we had to do. Sent his son down. We killed him. So it's like, what message are we trying to tell him?
right.
And so he's like, all
Right.
right, so I will leave y'all alone.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and this I can see like this moment here also being very offensive to somebody. Like, what? God is going to make a deal with the devil? I can see that, but at the same time, with the way the Bible is also even written, it's almost like it's part of the plan, right?
yeah,
We all love to talk about Revelation, the book of Revelation, where the beast is going to be unlocked and everything's going to happen, and it's just like maybe he didn't make a deal, but God sure as hell wrote the story
yeah.
where it's like this is the way it's going to happen, and then the devil's going to do this, and then all this stuff is going to happen. And it's gonna be like, all
To
right,
get
if you're so against this, why is you wrote a hell of a plan?
right, to get a little bit ahead, I absolutely love when Jesus finds out and flips out on him, and he's like, "You can't trust that guy," and then he goes, "I've known him longer than you,"
I
and
know.
I'm like, "Yeah, that's 100% true." Um, and so like, I love this is the part that I guess may even go under people's radars, but it's like God from this moment on is very introspective. His wavering on whether or not he's going to trust the devil is based on the fact that he loved the devil at one point, or loved Lucifer Morningstar, favorite angel. Um, and same thing with humans. If he made us in his image, it's kind of his fault. And if Satan got this far out of jealousy, whatever, it's also maybe kind of his fault. And so we're seeing God for the first again trying, you know. But you're like, why is he willing to do all this kind of stuff? And you find out later on, it's because he is so traumatized by the crucifixion event. He's willing to try anything to make sure his nothing happens to his son on earth. Which
Yeah,
pretty
no, and it's I think that part of the story is to appeal to I guess a regular reader. Like you
yeah,
can kind of see that, like, oh wow, you know, if you're a parent, you can kind of see, hey, I would understand why. I mean, you've already seen them die once. You don't.
yeah,
Nobody wants to see their kid die twice.
yeah.
You know, so I could see what this aspect of the story is coming along, but again, as you progress, it leans into the idea of preserving the integrity of Jesus, which is what's great when it comes along.
Yeah. So Sunstar randomly receives a letter from the dictator of Shirkia that mentions his trouble adopting a child. The dictator invites him over to have a pick of any child of his country.
Yeah, come.
He's like, we have so many
The
orphans.
letter's like the home of many orphans.
Yeah, he's like,
Like that's a problem.
and he calls himself the father of all Turkian kids.
Right,
Like,
right.
he is the
But
father of all of
yet
them. Yeah.
he's the father of all of them, but they're orphans.
Yes. Yeah. That's what's going on over
Hmm.
there.
You know,
But
that's like a guy who's like, I got mad kids, man. I don't know none of them, but I got a lot of
yeah,
kids.
yeah, right.
It's like you're a hell of a guy. You're a hell of a guy.
If a tree falls, um, although it sounds fishy, Sheila begs Ken to hear the dictator out, as this may be their last shot at as parents.
Right. Mm-hmm.
At a cafe in Berlin, the devil and God go over their complicated history, with Lucifer being God's favorite angel, who grew jealous of the love he had for the humans he hated. God would eventually cast Lucifer from paradise, and as revenge, Lucifer sought to corrupt his greatest creation, humanity. How close is that the lore?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, there's a little bit more to it, but pretty much it. Yeah, the idea that Lucifer got jealous. He was this
I knew he
angel
was
who
cast
was
down, but I never knew why.
Yeah, because he's Lucifer is the or I don't think depends who you talk to. Depends
Right.
who you talk to.
Right.
I
Right.
think that the idea that the serpent was the devil.
Yes.
I believe depending on your faith or how you view things, they're one and the same or that they're completely different. But essentially, yes, the Lucifer was like the first angel created, was his first creation, and he became jealous because he's like, wait a minute, you made me from stardust and you made them from mud and you
Yeah.
love them more
Hmm.
and you gave them free will,
Right.
whereas we have all this power, but we're at your beck and call. So he leads a revolution against heaven where he and against heaven and where he then gets cast down because it's God. It's like, you
But he
know,
did it January 6th.
he did. He did. He came
He's
wearing
the guy in the
the
yeah, he's the guy in the bison
we got
club.
this. We got this. No,
No, no, you
no.
don't. No, you don't.
So he gets cast down, and now he's Lucifer forever cast out of heaven. You know. So and he has and but yet it's like that's part of the plan, though. It
Yeah,
seems right.
yeah. Serious ways. Um, so he begs God to be let back in his good graces, and although God hesitates, he said he will send him a sign. Sunstar arrives in Shirkia, where he is greeted by their nutty leader, who promises that he can have his choice of child. In a park, Jesus meets with some followers who asked why he returned. Love this. He claimed he knew humanity would fall out of favor from God eventually, and that he came back to help people come to terms with human nature and to teach them to rely on each other as they would in God. I love that. I buy that. I love that. Um, the idea of coming to terms with nature is this idea of being real with oneself, you know,
Right.
and having that transparency to know that you will have feelings of greed and of anger and of avarice and of revenge, and that's in your nature. Like that's something you can't change, but seek others, talk it out, have conversations about the stuff that you're feeling,
Right.
and the same counsel you are seeking from someone who can truly never verbally speak back to you. Seek that in those who can. Because if you believe that everyone is created in his image, then you are speaking to God when you're speaking to your friend. You
Right.
know?
Right.
And like sign me up. I buy that. Like I buy that.
Mm-hmm.
That rang true to me here. And that's why I say like there's no way Mark's a blasphemer. He's going out of his
No. And
way to almost modernize
mm-hmm.
and shave off the rough edges of some of the biggest, golden rules the Bible's ever created, Christianity's ever created.
Yeah.
I like that.
Not even shave them to me, challenge them and just bring them to light. Like, hey, what about this?
Yeah,
What about this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Because this is just the first volume. In the second and third volumes, it gets even deeper.
that's
It,
interesting.
and it was it. I'll be honest with you, like the second volume was a tough read because it was like, ooh, this is really
Saying some
challenging.
stuff.
And I'll be honest with you, I've never read the third volume,
Okay,
but rereading this
it's
one has
because
made
is
me
it
want
because of the
to.
second one, or you just like kind of like
Um,
lost track of the
I
series
just
kind
lost
of thing?
track. I just
Okay,
lost track.
that
It was around,
happens.
that was because it was around that COVID time and financials and certain books became hard to find.
Yeah,
So, but it was one of those that said, I'll go back to that. I'll get back to that. And now rereading this is definitely like, oh, I gotta jump back on this.
yeah. Um,
But yeah, I mean, this whole idea of nature, but that also is the idea of Christianity, where it's
yes,
like, hey, man, you have to go against your nature and find this love that we're
right.
not just these animals that have to go, well, because the law of the jungle says this, then we have to abide by that. We like to think we're smarter than that, right?
Yeah,
You,
we're
you,
we
you see you
we've
see two
evolved past
dogs
that.
you see two dogs fighting over a bone. You don't go, man, those two dogs got it right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
go, why don't we try to find another bone?
Right.
We're people. We can figure that out. They're animals. So we're above that. We're above that, and that's what we have to learn. Because people, it still happens. It still happens.
I
It's quite
like
sad.
that. I like that infusion of science. Um, because you can't just outwardly ignore science, right? Like
No.
I feel like the best case for Christianity is like this more modern take because an older take would have been instead of teaching us how to accept our human nature, it would be teaching us how to accept the fact that we are indebted from the original sin beginning, where we are,
Mhm.
you know, we're in debt from the beginning when we're born.
Right.
We're imperfect, and that's harder to swallow than just it's our animal nature, and our better angels are trying to, hey,
Hmm.
I get your instinct in this moment, but you're better than that. We're all better than that. I like that message.
Yeah.
It's a bit less bleak than the constant like digging yourself out of the hole that Adam and Eve dug us into in the first place. So Sunstar goes to a location seen on a map given to him by the dictator, which is supposed to be where the orphanage is. Nothing to see here. He just let him, hey, go to this part of the map and you'll find children there. So when he gets there, it's a trap, but he survives the incoming explosion. He flies back to the dictator, grabs him, and flies off. At Sunstar's apartment, God speaks to Jesus and lets him know he's considering bringing Satan back in order to gain his protection for Jesus while on Earth. God confesses that um, the day of the crucifixion was the worst day of his life, and he realized that while humans are rageful, they are made in his image and thus can't be completely at fault. Jesus pleads for him not to side with Satan, saying he knows death is the price he will pay in order to teach humanity to be better, and is okay with it.
Yeah.
That's some deep stuff right there.
Yeah.
Um, it's not said with the ye and the old and whatever.
Nope.
It's just like plainly stated. Like this is the price I'm paid to teach them this. I know death is coming.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, that was the whole prophecy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's all, he did it once. He'll do it again. But even that might be blasphemy because the way most people believe Jesus is going to come back, he's going to come back with a vengeance,
Locked and loaded.
which locked and
yeah.
loaded. He's going to descend from heaven. He's going to swing a giant sword,
Yeah.
and even that's kind of like, man, that's kind of harsh for this guy who was still loving. But
Right. It's a rebrand.
that's where it goes.
Absolute Jesus.
Uh, he's gonna take it off his chest and turn it
That's the
into an
cross.
axe.
The cross. That's gonna break into two like Billy clubs, like Nightwing is gonna break
Yeah, right.
apart. So he pleads with. Oh, I said that. No. Yeah, he pleads with his father not to let Satan into heaven. But later, while walking in the rain, the devil sees a sign from God, a rainbow with "I'm sorry" written on it. Sunstar arrives at home and tells Sheila about the trap. She wonders if they can't be parents, will they ever be enough? The Sunstar quiets her doubts with a proposal. I didn't write it down, but I thought it was very sweet. Like when he's like, "Do you know what love means to an immortal man like me? It means like watching everybody you love ever die, walking the earth by yourself forever. Love is knowing all that, but still choosing love anyway." Yeah,
Yeah,
that is what that is. We know life is not finite, and we make forever promises
yeah.
to everyone. Our family
And
members are
we don't keep them, and we don't
no,
keep them.
no. So it's like these grand gestures come from the heart. We have no scope and control over time, but we are trying to impart. I want to be here forever. I love you forever. I really like how they tackled that. Meanwhile, the devil meets with Sunstar's greatest enemies as he plans to take Jesus and Sunstar down once and for all. A kind of parody of the Last Supper.
Yes, yeah, I dug that, and this is I feel like this is where it starts to lean into the idea of, oh, okay, this is the way the Bible says it's going to go down, right?
Yeah,
It's all right, not quite um in the altruistic way that the Bible like presents it, where God being all knowing and the devil, the idea that they made a deal. I like how they're showing this. I like how they're showing this where the devil would put himself in a situation like this, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna be Jesus now,
yeah,
right? I'm gonna be your savior, and it's also kind of like the Antichrist,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
the Antichrist being the devil. He's gonna come, he's gonna make deals with people, and hey, we're gonna rock and roll, but then salvation's going to come in some way, shape, or form again.
And
So I like this.
this would be how God destroys the earth. The almost the exact thing beat for beat happening again would be why he would throw a pebble What is it? Ultron says, throw a pebble at a river or whatever, and just take us off the map, basically.
That's it.
Um, so I think we're on our final issue here. Um, Sunstar is preparing for his honeymoon, but plans to try and take down a supervillain right before he is set to celebrate. Jesus thinks back on how he gained followers and was considered a blasphemer. Claims being a follower of his. What did you think about this take? He claims being a follower of his takes more faith than intellect, as he has no proof of what he is saying, but he gained following anyway, even folding a man named Judas into his ranks. What do you think about that idea? That he's like, maybe my fathers weren't the smartest, but they were like, they're faithful.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that people even like to tout as believers. They'll sit there and go, "Look, these 12 uneducated men changed the world," and it's like, well, maybe that was part of the problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
you let a, you let a bunch of uneducated people sit there and tell you, "Hey, man, this is the answer to the universe,"
Mhm.
and all of them wrote a ton of stuff except for the guy who was telling everybody, "Hey, man, this is how you should do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that guy was too busy doing the job, whereas everybody else was sitting there going, "Yo, we got to write this down. We got. What are you going to cover? Oh, you got that. I'm going to cover this part." Even though that's not how it goes, because after after Jesus is crucified, they're spread to the winds. They all go in
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
directions, and they're heavily persecuted. And then they start writing based on holy memory.
Ah, I remember
I
this
mean,
thing. Like when you go to the
yeah, remember
fridge and you
that.
remember something. Oh, wait a minute. Let me
Right.
write
Remember,
that
oh yeah,
down.
remember that, remember that, remember that. It's there. You talk about a line that you remember. There's a line in the end of this issue that, like, it's still burning in my head. It's a quick line that I'm sitting there going, man, I gotta like look up the etymologies of these words and really understand the statement and get behind it and understand what it is he's saying, because it's so true. So when we get there, we'll talk about it more. But
I love even here where he was like,
this issue just gets deep.
yeah, I love that he does the whole like, man, I should have just got a like a bio. What is it called? Biographicer. What does he call it? He's like
Biographer.
biographer. He's like, damn, I should have got a biographer.
Right. It's like a legit writer.
Yeah,
I got a bunch of con artists
yeah.
and tax
Writing stuff on
collectors.
napkins, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so
On the bottom of the sandals.
ridiculous. It says Andy down there, but Sunstar, using some body doubles and quick thinking, infiltrates Dr. Simius's lair, which holds in it a humongous supply of solanite, his only
Kryptonite.
weakness. Yes. He uses bees to make the doc submit. I don't know what he got bees from, but that was hilarious.
I
Um,
think it's just the thing that
Plagues.
apes
Oh, they
apes
hate.
are terrified of. They just, yeah, because bees mess them up. They can't fight that off. You can't muscle a
Yeah,
bunch of bees.
yeah,
Just
that
here
is
you
true.
go, kick your.
Yeah, here, take it, take the whole thing. I'm done. We are shown more of Jesus' early days, where the prophet denounced the value and power of money and performed miracles. Unbeknownst to him, his follower Judas became increasingly frustrated over Jesus' refusal to make money using any of these divine abilities. I thought that was pretty interesting because he's like, no, like what? You have money? Who's on that thing? He has no power. Do that. Let's just walk with me. Come with me
Right.
over here. I thought that was pretty cool. And then it's so not even in the realm of where he's thinking. This idea that he would do any of this for money. And then Judas brings
Right.
it up and he's like, what? No,
What?
like not even like, yeah, it's like not even part of this.
No.
Um in present day, Jesus attends the wedding of Ken and Sheila, and the couple fly off to their honeymoon. Jesus has a big meeting today with his followers. The first time he's tried to start an organized religion in 2,000 years. What he doesn't know is the devil plans to join, and we are told that the capture of Dr. Simius was all part of the plan. Get more flashbacks of Jesus and his miracles, and Judas continuing to suggest he used his powers profit. Get it, profit. Although Jesus refuses. This leads to the fateful night where Judas betrays Jesus for silver and allows Roman soldiers to arrest and eventually crucify him. I was aware of that part of the story. This
Mhm.
little tidbit, if this is editorial, I just thought it was interesting that Judas was like, "Well, I didn't really betray you. Just like do your magic stuff." And Jesus is like, "Nah,
Well, I mean, you could totally see that potentially happening, but at the end of the
yeah,
day, the guy did it for money.
Oh, 100%.
That you know what I mean? You could see that, like, oh yeah, you're gonna escape for whatever reason. But what is in the Bible is the fact that Jesus could have escaped, and the apostles were ready to defend him. And
Right.
Jesus at this point he's already ready
Yeah.
to die. He knows that this is going to happen, so he's already waiting for it. Even at one point, one of the apostles, I believe Peter, cuts off the ear of a Roman centurion, and Jesus heals the Roman centurion. Like, man, he wasn't supposed to do that. Go over there, man. I'm going
Right.
to die now. I'm going to die now. Deal with it. This is what I came for. I've
Yeah.
been telling you this all this time that we've been
You
hanging
don't
out.
remember
So
dinner when I was like, "Yo, somebody, one of y'all is not right."
one of y'all's not
I
right.
ain't gonna say who it is, but one of y'all's not right. And
I've
here,
been
have
I've been
some of my
telling you
blood.
all this time they're gonna destroy the temple, and in 3 days it'll come back. I'm talking about me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
So
Up, it's
it's
whatever o'clock.
that's
And
right.
that's
Here we go.
yeah. Um, but I like this idea that like you just had like this sort of greedy person who thought that they didn't do something that bad, and then all of the weight of their decision falls upon them, and I believe they hung
Yeah.
themselves, right? As a result of
Yeah.
this.
He eventually hangs himself. Yeah. He
Um,
eventually hangs himself because he. But we all play our part in the story, right?
well, that's why I like that he says, Judas begs Jesus to use his powers to get out of trouble, stating that he didn't really betray him if he can escape. However, the Son of Christ simply tells Judas that it's not Jesus whom he has betrayed, but his own heart, before marching off to his fate. And again, as somebody who loves this idea, when it was presented to me that Superman's greatest power is restraint, we got it right here.
Yeah.
But could have flipped out and grew tentacles and strangled all the
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
Roman centurions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
he no. In the Bible it says. In the Bible it says Jesus is like, man, I could call down an army of angels to come and save me, but
yeah,
that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm not here to do magic tricks. I mean,
right.
there's one big magic trick I'm here
Yeah,
to do. The resurrection.
yeah. Move the
But
rock.
right. But that's for later. You
Right.
know, I'm here for you guys to hopefully hear what I'm saying is love each other, take care of each other, believe in me, and but chill out, take care of each other, and not just the magic tricks.
Yeah. Um. So, but yeah, betrayed. In present day, Jesus has a meeting with his followers where he explains the importance of not having blind faith. This is seen as blasphemy for some reason, and his followers quickly attack him.
Quickly just tack them, man.
Just
I love
right
that. I love
on
that.
it.
I guess what I'm saying is be wisely with whom you choose to give the knife.
Yes.
Blasphemer.
And then immediately, and
Just
he's just talking about
decks
conviction.
him.
That's the whole thing. The whole conversation is about conviction and not just having blind faith in hopes of like a reward or that you're justified, which is really interesting.
No,
Um,
and this here is the line that got me, that I'm still sitting here trying to figure out, is where he says, in a way, faith is the opposite of belief.
yes, 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 yes.
And that line where he said, faith binds you together, it gives you confidence that you're doing the right thing, but to have faith in someone is to hand them a
The knife,
knife.
the knife.
Boom.
That's huge.
That's huge,
No, it
man.
is.
And so that idea of faith and belief, right? A lot of times most people say they're the same thing, right? You have faith in something, you have a belief in something,
Hmm.
but are they the same? Like, that's a line I'm gonna
And the
really
and the idea that
dive
he would
into.
come in and try to split those hairs, right? Because if he's being treated like an idol, who cares what word means what and what you guys are doing? You know what I'm saying? I got guys got kingdoms from. He doesn't go to churches to preach his gospel.
No.
With the house of God and all this other kind of stuff. He believes that those are all those symbols and all those teachings have been co-opted by other people. And in the like even the other speech in the park is effectively, hey guys, I know you love God and he loves you too, but don't wait on him. Like don't like he's not coming. Like it's you guys here and you guys
That's
got to
it.
figure it out. And like for those who believe that they're always being watched and always being blessed and always maybe they don't like that sort of talk, you know. But the idea, like I don't know, it just makes me smile. The idea that Jesus doesn't come to Earth and immediately wants to be idolized and immediately wants to be followed and doted on, after last time how he was treated. The idea that he would almost make people get further from religion in his in okay further from organized religion
Right.
than the established rules and regulations that we were told by men who were told by men who were told by men who were told by men. We're
Right.
told by guys who were like, "Hey, listen, we need to keep all these guys in order," kind of shit. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
I
Yeah, because I
I
mean,
I like that.
think about it. He was dropped off like a child,
Yeah,
right? He was trying, hey man, teach my son to be like you. Go out there and decapitate bad guys and do all this stuff. And all he's doing is softening
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah,
to try to make it. Hey man, there's a better way to do this. My dad has been doing it that way for centuries, millennia.
yeah.
It's not working. It's not working. You got to be soft. You got to be chill. To the point where earlier in the same issue, Sunstar wants to go on his honeymoon,
Mm-hmm.
and he's begrudgingly,
Grudgingly.
talking about how, look, every day I take off is 20,000 people dying, and I had to like meet my wife in the middle and be okay with like 120,000 people dying.
Yeah,
But he's sad about it now. He's sad
yeah.
about it. Whereas remember the beginning of the story, especially with the
Conversation with God.
not just the conversation with God, and then the fact that he was willing to kill that one dude, he
Yeah.
was happy to do it. Now he's sitting there going, recognizing the gravity of
Oh,
the
and the
decisions that he
way,
makes,
yeah, totally.
the
The
weight of
great
what
power, great
he's.
responsibility.
There it is, there it is. So it's a great way that they show the character, if you want to see him as a character,
Mm-hmm.
or your deity, Jesus. And I love that Mark maintains Jesus throughout the whole story.
Yeah.
And if you're a Christian, right, what do they say? Jesus changed lives. Jesus changed lives. Here it is. Here it is. I think
And
Mark is trying to show, hey, even within these confines, he can change lives. It's interesting.
and that's why, like, as even as you were saying, if you don't want to go all the way to the prophet route, if you don't want to go all the way to the Son of God route, this idea that a man came and with his teachings did change people, and he didn't do it like the miracles didn't turn people into followers. They may have convinced them to listen to him,
Mm-hmm.
or be a part of the audience when he gave sermons and stuff like that. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm following that guy because of this. They believed in what he was saying. So this idea that on words alone and living the truth and what is it, leading by example, that he was able to change people's minds, make people softer, kinder, have more empathy, stop killing each other. um, but yeah, he's having issues now, even with his own little mini meeting. The devil appears and gives him a proposition: die or be forced to defend himself with violence, proving his teachings are baloney. Jesus chooses option C and calls Sunstar for help. Sunstar arrives in his tidy whities because he was on his honeymoon.
Honeymoon. Mm-hmm.
But he is quickly subdued by a Solonite chain made available to the devil now that Dr. Simius was taken out. With Sunstar neutralized and Jesus on his knees, Satan picks up a dagger and asks Christ for his last words. Jesus stabs the devil while saying, "Forgive me," and Satan dies, thanking Jesus for the relief. Jesus ends the meeting early. He's like, "I think, yeah, I should go home." I
You
thought
know,
that I thought that was very interesting. He's like, "Ah, yeah, I guess I failed this." Well,
this is this not biblical, right?
yeah,
Some people might get offended. Oh, Jesus would never kill somebody. Pick up a whoa, whoa, whoa. It said that Jesus is going to come down from the sky with a giant flaming sword, man.
yeah. Which is
So
it?
why wouldn't he stab the devil in the heart with a
Yeah,
pickle knife? With a
yeah. I
pickle
saw
knife.
the pickle knife. I love earlier on where I love the two times they show the misinterpretation of their teachings, like God's teachings and Jesus' teachings. Like one of them is, I think Moses is like, or one of them is like, um, I know we believe in an eye for an eye, but we have to learn how to turn the other cheek. The guy goes, "What did he just say?" And he goes, "I don't know, something about an eye for an eye."
Yeah,
And they just
right.
go, in that
And they just
direction.
go,
And the other
right,
one,
and then the other one, thou shalt not kill. No, no
yeah,
killing, no killing. Because this person killed, we must
yeah,
kill him. And he's like, what?
it's like,
No,
"Thou shalt
no,
not kill."
no.
if you break this, you will be killed.
Yo.
And it's like you're not getting it at all. Really, really,
and
really.
and you and you and you really start to see the the frustration in God now,
Yeah,
and you start to understand why he is the way he is in the beginning of the story, because it
we can't get
humanizes
right.
him.
We can't get right. Apparently, as a
We can't get
species.
right. It humanizes God, which they constantly. What does the Bible love to say about us? We were created in His image.
Yeah,
So you can understand that you got to get past it. If you're so offended by it, I get it, but it's for the purpose of this story. And like Mark said in that letter in the first issue, hey man, Christianity was founded on the idea of blasphemy. So this is my blasphemy. It's me just trying to find my humanity or our spirit or spirituality. Like where is this?
yeah,
You know. So
yeah.
I really really like this story.
I thought it was extremely well done, and he goes on to say that he chose to live amongst the humans to find out what was causing them so much pain. To if he wants to heal them, he has to find out what the issues are.
Right.
And that makes a ton of sense. I always felt like he was kind of like thrown into this situation. That was my vague understanding of all this. So he was born. He realized what the weight was when he grew up, what he was asked to do, and basically just lived out the prophecy. But this idea that like we are the rebellious first child of God, and God is like our sibling going like he's like, come on, mom, like I know you said he's grounded for like 4 weeks, but can it be two? Like trying to soften the blow, cares about us way
Mhm.
more, is down to let us do stuff and not tell tell mom on occasion. So long as we clean their room, so long as
That's right. Right. The house is still standing. We're,
yeah,
we're, we're good to go. No one's dead. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I dig that depiction, and I love this ending where God sits with Jesus and they talk about their failures of reining humanity in, and they're trying to like kind of figure out like maybe are they just jacked like forever, like like is that just what it is? And I think they kind of embrace the imperfect nature of all this. I love that God says that it's all circumstantial, which is like the opposite of the commandments, right? The commandments are all encompassing. Like thou shalt not kill. There's no circumstance to that. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill
No. It doesn't
asterisk,
say that. Yes. Right.
unless yada 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 yada. So the
Mhm.
idea that the all knowing has a semblance of nuance. I like that version of God.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, can't be everything. Maybe we should settle this in a case by case basis. I really like that, and I really like I don't have children, but I really like that they captured like I could almost see God tuffling his hair. Like
Yeah.
you
Come here.
tried, out
You
there.
you
Like you did your
you
best.
scamp.
Yeah,
You
he's like you
know.
did your best. Don't get hard on yourself. I remember when I was your age, and
Yeah. Right.
like he's doing that whole thing, and they really nail that feeling of them
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
the full house sit on the edge of the bed for the end of the
Right.
episode lesson
Yes.
conversation.
Right. You can almost hear that music. That.
Yeah, the softening. Yeah, the
Yeah.
softening
Yeah. Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they decide that while religion is imperfect, if it makes people feel loved, I am very much of that feeling. I believe that us as human beings crave meaning and we crave purpose. I cannot give people purpose, nor can I give people meaning. Some people find it on their own, but a lot of people find it through religion. And I like, who am I to take meaning and purpose from somebody? So long as you're not hurting
Right.
other people, I could care less. And if people are feeling loved together and feeling loved together and praising or worshiping or whatever, but in community, looking after the weakest ones of ours, and covering any cracks so no one falls through them. Like I love that. I dig that. Um, but let's see. He embraces his son and tells him he's proud. Later at the bowling alley, God falls in love with bowling, saying it just makes sense to him how everything resets after a disaster. I thought that was pretty
Hmm.
funny.
No, and that was something I was gonna say. Mark Russell must love bowling because bowling comes up a lot in this
Yeah.
story, and he must, the way he developed this little philosophy out of bowling. I'm like, man, this guy must love bowling.
But there's
But I
something
dug it.
to Jesus and bowling, right? Because
Mhm.
like Holy Roller's a thing. Um Jesus is the name of the guy from Big Lebowski who bowls. Don't mess with the Jesus.
Nobody, don't mess with the Jesus.
Nobody mess with the Jesus. So I just found that all funny. He sincerely thanks Sunstar for looking after his son, and he says he got him a gift. Sunstar seems happy when he thinks God got him a fruit basket, but is downright floored when Sheila shows what else God gave them. Sheila is pregnant. They're
There
having a
is
baby. The end. And that
volume
was,
two.
yeah, that was our 6 issue series, Second Coming. I really enjoyed this. Um, what a using comedy to disarm people so that uh, the human mind. Comedy is his miracles. It's Mark Russell's miracle.
Mhm.
It's his pyro to get us to come over and start
Right,
reading this book, and then he starts really preaching, and
right.
you take that message with you. And yeah, there's a healing of leprosy here and water into wine here with the jokes and stuff that he's able to do in this. But he really expertly is able to implant these very touching, prescient, and overall wholesome morals, values, beliefs. Um, I walked away having more respect for Christianity than I did going in, which is why I think it's very ironic that so many Christians try to stop this book from happening. And obviously not all
Right.
Christians, but
Not yet.
just that idea is just like,
Mhm.
wow, like you could have stopped another coming of people being like, well, you know what,
Right.
maybe I got this wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. Because
because
this.
we're not having the conversation.
Right. Because think about it. If this book would have came out under the banner of DC, this could have potentially been a huge book.
Yeah.
Because other and that's the thing. Other books have gotten bigger releases, and they've been way more offensive. So like, what I just want to know. There's a book out there called American Jesus
Yeah. Yep.
that is
Yep.
all about the Antichrist.
Oh
You
wow.
know, Preacher has come out.
Yeah.
I you know even
Sandman
right
deals with the
now,
devil, Lucifer, and all that.
Sandman deals with the devil. Even recently, a Ghost Machine book came out dealing with the idea of angels and demons and stuff like that. So, but it's just interesting how the thing that most people look at as this all powerful, all accepting, all changing thing, they also want to say no, but it can only do this and it's only allowed to be seen like this. And I truly don't believe that that's Jesus. That you can't call him unlimited power and then say but there's a limit to how it can come to you. And something I've always believed, and people say, it's you have an individual relationship with Christ,
Right.
but yet but a lot of people will tell you, but this is how you're supposed to have the relationship.
Right.
That's not an individual relationship with Christ.
Right. No,
So
that's why I like it was the and come on, it doesn't get more strict than Roman Catholic. It was the strict rules that made me a bit want to rally against them as you do as when you're a teenager, as you do right when you grow up, you rally against the rules. Why this? Why that? And I wasn't getting answers because no one wanted to have the conversation with me. It was because it was. It was
right.
because it was written. And I wish someone would have just like kind of sat down with me and just not in a way to convince me, but just like almost like in a lore dump. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, check this out. And I believe that with the best intentions, conversations like that just bring us together. I didn't leave this converted, but I left
Right.
this with more patience and empathy for my fellow man.
There you
And
go.
not everyone needs to be on the same page, but we need to treat each other like human beings. At the
That's it.
very least. At the very
That's
least.
it.
Human decency at the very least. And
That's it.
yeah, and that's the gift we are giving you guys today. It's just a little food for thought for on this episode of the Major Issues podcast. The Lord giveth
Yeah.
and the Lord taketh away, and He must have known that we were covering this because today it was announced that the Lord has taketh away the Sony universe of Marvel characters. Craven, which we will be covering next week, will be the final film that Sony produces under their Sony universe of Marvel characters. That
Will
entire
it be
universe,
resurrected? Will it be
that
resurrected?
entire universe is being smothered in the crib. And they are, because I mean, I'm assuming that all this was to lead up to Spider-Man eventually joining.
To
So the
some
idea that they're
or
just, yeah, they're baby Thanosing it is yeah, you know, is just the world, is just the Lord working in mysterious ways. But we are going to be throwing a New Orleans funeral for Craven and the Sony Universe of Marvel characters next week, as we
gonna,
talk about it and kind of just, I'm not expecting much of it, so I'm kind of just willing to talk about the film and just like where all this went wrong.
that's why,
Um,
yeah, our review is now a eulogy.
yes, 100%, 100%. And it doesn't stop there. You know, after Craven, we'll be talking about the best and worst of this year. We'll be getting into predictions for next year, and then we have a whole host of new content that we'll be covering moving forward. We got interviews lined up, got some major announcements, some major pieces of content lined up. Um, there was recently a void in my life that was rivaling to take over that I filled this weekend, and so I might have a book that I want to recommend for for the next bit of previews there. But yeah, it's been a blast. We're finishing up this year, and I just want to thank everyone who has supported us through this year. So many people have, to the point that we've doubled our numbers since last year, and it's overwhelming, but it just makes us want to bring out the best in Comic Book Click and ourselves and our coverage. And it's books like this that help us do that. I think this is more of the best of CBC when we are elevated and talking about themes and these comments. There's only so many times you can say, "Wasn't those laser eyes cool?" You know, that wasn't that cool when he flew really fast that time. You know, it's this deeper stuff that is really our bread and butter, and I love when we are able to chop it up about this kind of stuff. From the quote unquote silly comic books that we're able to take in. So thank you guys for your support. If you're listening to this or watching this for the very first time, because we do major issues live before the audio version comes out, consider going to comicbookclick.com. It's the one stop for everything Comic Book Click. Every episode of the Major Issues podcast is on there. This is episode 360, full circle for Comic Book Click. So that means there's 350 episodes on comicbookclick.com if you haven't listened to the rest that are available there. We've covered every major motion picture to come out since 2017. So with like raw reviews there, and then we've gone back and done retro reviews on television series and stuff. I can't wait. We're gonna have to cover Superman and Lois and what all that means. Literally the end of the Arrowverse. So sad. But yeah, man. So we got Fantastic Four and Superman. That
in
is
like the
crazy.
same month. In the
Yeah,
same month.
that's that's so crazy, and they both have to hit. They both are suffering from bad adaptations, and they both need to hit. I don't know if Fantastic Four gets another chance on this.
I hope it does. I hope it does.
25 years of bad adaptations. I don't know. Well, not even if you go back to 1994 with the Corman cut. Uh, bonkers stuff. But if you want to know about the future of comics and comic book media, you got to follow us. Like I said, go to comicbookclick.com. Check out our articles. Check out every piece of merchandise over at the T Public store. Buy one, and we get a kickback of every single thing purchased. If you want to help support us, you can like I said, you can end up buying a piece of merch, or you can rate and review us on iTunes. It's the quickest way for us to grow as podcasters. Find out what you like and what you don't. You can become a Patreon, a patron at patreon.com. Patron at
Try
Patreon.
saying that.
Yeah, I'm not.
.com.
Yeah,
Try
I can't
saying that
say
25
regular.
times fast. 5 times fast. But
Patreon, come Patreon, patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse. For less than $3 a day, 10 cents a month. You can help us support us here, keep our lights on here as we afford the hardware and the software that we need to keep providing content free of charge. We're buying gear. We got a trip set up in February. TBC will be on the ground at MegaCon Orlando. We'll be giving more announcements as we move forward with that. Hoping to link up with some of you guys who've been checking us out. Well, you know we got some Florida peeps out here. So maybe we can link up with some of you guys out there, meet you guys, and really get to meet the clique. Um, uh, you can go to the podcast is available wherever podcasts are found. Podbean, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, the Apple Podcast app, TuneFind, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Like I said, go to ComicBookClique, check out all that stuff there. We're available all over social media, Facebook.com/ComicBookClique, Instagram at ComicBookClique. You can use that hashtag ComicBookClique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. I've been to the future. We do become the latest and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media, but I can't tell you how we do it because it will mess up the timeline. And next thing you know, I don't know. I'm gonna lay off doing this week. I'm God's watching. And next thing you know,
Matthew McConaughey is talking about he's going to play Jesus in the next adaptation of
yes,
Passion of the Christ.
I actually pretty down with that. Next thing you know, Jack Black is gonna play Jesus.
Hey, he's playing both. He was Satan.
Hey,
that was Jesus.
There we go. There we go. Hey, give it and take it away. But yeah,
That's
man,
it.
show up, show out. We're here every single week. It's a labor of love. We are doing the Major Issues podcast every week. We are doing major previews every month. If you're listening to this, you can hear the sound of my voice. December previews is up, and guess what? There's still 20 days left in this month for you to grab those awesome books. January will be out for you guys to check out pretty soon. So you guys can check out the new books for the new year. It's a complete year of major previews. I can't believe that we've done that. The journey of a million steps starts with a single one, and we hope to be going on many journeys next year. Get on the bandwagon before the bandwagon gets full, because you will be left in the dust, and we got places we're going. So get packed up, because we are going to the moon. But I think that's. Oh, I would be remiss if I did not talk about DirtSheet Radio, the guys we share ComicBookClique.com with. Those guys are the leading voices in all things professional wrestling and pop culture. Killing it over there each and every week with their live shows, discussing things like Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, NXT, and more. We're getting in a very exciting time for them as well, as the road to WrestleMania starts in January. We get all that stuff very, 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 very soon. A rising tide lifts all ships. We'll be talking about pay-per-views, movie drops, comic drops. They say Hush 2's coming out. We about to get a brand new Ultimate Wolverine. Things are getting crazy out there, people. So pay attention. We got our ears to the ground. Just make sure that you're staying connected to us, and we'll never lead you. We will be the shepherds to the flock. But that's all I've got today. Thank you guys for joining.
I just want to also apologize to all our fans out there, guys. I know I started making weekly videos between the holidays and between literally some technical difficulties. I produced an entire video that had no sound.
Telling you,
happens.
Wasn't meant to be.
But it was some kind of maybe
divine intervention or something.
Yeah. Something. But stand by, because those are going to be coming out every week again. Start this coming week.
So hey, baby, like I said, we're running on all cylinders, and we are fueled by your love and your passion. Keep sending it our way, and we'll keep sending amazing content your way. But there's nothing else left to say. But my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
And I'm Alex Garcia, aka The Cog.
And this has been our second coming, issues 1 through 6, recap and review. And remember, whether you're a believer, an atheist, a zealot, or just some guy who likes a vegetable platter, remember that we are the Clique. Happy holidays, people. And always remember that you, yes, you, are worthy.
Recording stopped.